Alex Ansary here for November 19th in the year 2017. So, this period pretty much marks the 5 year anniversary since I first went off the grid in Costilla County, Colorado. And that date specifically was November 17th, 2012. At this moment, I am going to be contemplating that period where I am now. And what I want to say before we begin, there is this oddity, maybe you've noticed it before, right? Where, for example, there may be certain things that come up again and again around certain dates or anniversaries. Or there may be certain things that we go out and do, for example, where it's like 1 year, like it meant something, like we were meant to be there for 1 year, and then things switch up a little bit, and then we have another experience for a year, for example. Like, let me go back to 2011. That was the first time I left Portland, Oregon, and I left with nothing but a backpack. I also returned with nothing but a backpack in the year 2014. Oh, I ended up getting a car in between that period and a lot of stuff. I left that car and that stuff behind because it was weight in between my travels. So I ended up basically coming back to Portland, even with that sports jacket that I had for a number of years before literally I just let it go, so to speak. And it was a metaphoric part of the ego death of maybe the version of myself that I was building, or at least Alex Ansary outside the box in Portland, Oregon specifically, right, on Portland Community Media. Long story short, so I left Portland, as some of you know, went to Dallas, Texas, was there in 2012, and that's what led to Costilla County, Colorado. And so that was really my first bare bones off-grid experience. We're talking about without adequate insulation, without enough firewood, some nights without firewood, with nothing more than my Mr. Buddy heater, which is over here, which, in this part of Colorado, not so bad. It's not the coldest part of Colorado. I didn't know that that's where I was going at that time. So it built a certain sense of strength within me, is what I'm getting at. One of the other concepts or themes that I talked about, even as far back as then, I'm doing videos on Facebook, should be used not to go into the Borg, but for the real meetup. What are we doing for ourselves with Facebook? 5 years ago, I'm making videos about that from off the grid in Costilla County. I'm talking about defending your mind from the mind parasites in Costilla County 5 years ago. I'm writing my Solar Flare presentation, which is now an ebook that was presented at the Mark Passio For Your Mind conference in 2013 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. All that focus, all that determination, all that passion that really was already within me, all that knowledge here in the head space, but to bring it down into heart space and then bring it down in a manifestation on paper, that was the 2012-2013 time period for me in Costilla County, Colorado. And some people have found those videos of me in Costilla County, and they may not know that a lot of things have changed. Maybe not for the better. Since my first videos, titled My Initial Thoughts and Reactions, to being in the San Luis Valley. There's also another video called Return to the San Luis Valley. It is, without a doubt, a beautiful place. What is it about Blanca? What is it about the Chris O'Brien books, even, that causes some of us to wonder if there's something magical, not just with regards to the UFOs, but on a deeper level, more of a nature level, more of a spiritual level, right? What is it? And I'll tell you what I think. I mean, there's a number of reasons, right? Okay, let's go. Well, I just want to get away from it all. Get away from what all? Can you define that? You don't need to, but let me try to kind of describe what it might be also, or including, whether they're defining that or not. The cell phone towers, the unnatural electromagnetic pollution, cell phone towers, and of course all these human beings, all these angry thoughts, they're transmitter receivers. So it's about getting away from the magnetism where all the energy is, the grid, if you will, the grid. And all of those people transmitting and receiving. And if you have a lot of people hit with propaganda, right, and divide and conquer programs, that could be a difficult society for some of us to live in. So, we may have had our different reasons for wanting to go off grid. There are some people also that go off grid that are still very much affected by Babylon. So their motivations for going off the grid are very, very different, and that's fine. I've met very few people like me off the grid. I thought I would meet more people like me off the grid, that were open-minded, independent, not into left, right, able to detect, the real information that's out there and not be co-opted by the Pied Pipers of today's day and age and the alternative and mainstream media. But unfortunately, I haven't come across that. But it's still a beautiful thing to talk about, even if politics gets in the way. Take a look at this picture, which I believe I did take along with many, many others. And the pictures do look much more beautiful when you haven't seen it in a while, for example. It's also an area that's not for everyone. Again, I would say it's the magnetism. Now, does that mean that someone could be so removed then from the rest of the world, but also be effed with by spiritual parasites? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I came across a number of those individuals in the San Luis Valley. You also, I would say, need to have a strong spirit to deal with those winds. That was one major complaint that I heard from a lot of people out there was the winds. And I can understand that. I would think of it as winds of change and to go with the changes that the wind brings. That happens to be, ironically, what leads me to where I'm at right now. I am planning a road trip. Okay, and I don't have all the details worked out, and I don't have a lot of expectations, and I'm not traveling with a lot of money, and I'm not going to spend a lot of money. A lot of it is my willingness to rise above my own fears of people, places, and things. There's like some major soul growth, I think, in the willingness to travel somewhere where you do not know the outcome. I told a friend, no, I'm not traveling with my backpack and sleeping under bridges. I'm going to visit a friend that I haven't seen since high school and sleep on a padded foam mattress like they sell at the big box stores. I'm doing that already. I'll bring a backpack with me. I'm going to pack light. I'm bringing this computer. I'm bringing this microphone. I'm bringing that webcam. I'm taking the show on the road, ladies and gentlemen. This is an exciting moment. And, it's like the moment seems right. The winds of change are there. Let me mention a couple other trips. Back in 2005, I followed my gut. This is before, when things were a little different. I was new. But it was also a different Alex Jones. But I just knew I wanted to meet Alex Jones and interview Alex Jones. And I made it my goal, and I created it. And I interviewed Jack Blood, and I met, a number of people in Austin, Texas when I went there in 2005. And I felt stronger as a result. Coming back to Portland, I felt like I was making a pilgrimage to see the others. You can even see the elders in the alternative media or the independent media. There's a few people I interviewed that I don't even think are alive anymore. I also talked to Galen Ross. I was also in the home of George Humphreys. What a character. We will say there. Met someone by the name of Leah Lewis, or now Leah LaChapelle. Also Michael Bartnerick, also Tex Mars, also interesting character. Again, it was 2005. Much more naive Alex Ansary during that particular period in time, and I've learned a lot more since, but some of those people were very, very gracious to me and welcoming to me, and that would include Freeman Fly. That would include Tex Mars, that invited me to his studio. So that was possible because I was willing to put my own money down. At that point, I was working, bussing tables. But money that I'd saved, and I also went out and bought like a camcorder for like $400. I'm not doing anything like that now. Things have gotten a little cheaper. But remember the shotgun mic that I had and the mount. So now I'm looking at this next adventure to a major U.S. city. And it's a little different of an Alex Ansary now. I'm not necessarily going out to interview people, for hits or things of that nature. I would love, to be honest with you, to sit down with someone, for example, in Chinatown in Los Angeles with, say, an interesting individual and to get some interviews. But I'm not necessarily going to go out of my way to do that. I would like to enjoy myself, do some videos on the road. I don't know how long, right? And again, we're talking about going west, not to Portland. Um, we're not talking about going to New York or around the whole nation. Just, a little brief little trip during Thanksgiving. Keeping the expenses down in an area that's fairly expensive. There's a part of me that wants to see this part of America that seems so targeted. So under the crosshairs, if you will, of North Korea, China, and Russia in a worst case situation. An area in which many people have fled from up to Oregon and even here to Colorado. What is it about this place that A, they flee from, but B, so many people also want to stay there? What is it about that? So here I am 5 years after visiting Costilla County for the first time, and already, the wheels are in motion for what I would consider for the first time since 2005, since I went to Austin, really, that I was spontaneous, grabbed the camera. At that point, I don't even think I had a laptop that I took with me to Texas. So it was just recording stuff on tape, and I think back in that day, I even had a cell phone still. I even think, from the minutes I used, I ran it up a bit. This was before Facebook. So I think it went over back in the days of going over with the cell phone for 150. So this time around, going more with the idea of leisure, but without the anxiety. Sure, there's going to be a prayer to the Creator for safety, going there and returning, but it's not a trip with the same amount of anxiety, for example, as say when I went to Costilla County, and it was all turned over to the Creator, if you will. God, please don't let me die. Please keep me alive during this. And that's the kind of prayer that you get to when you're shaking and you're shaking. And you don't even know you're in like the coldest part of North America until it hits you. And people start saying, yeah, you did know this is like the coldest part of North America, right? At least one of the colder parts of Colorado, next to Alamosa, Colorado, which is basically the same region, 45 minutes away from where this picture was taken. And I still have some of these pictures, some of these original pictures that I took from Costilla County. I think more so in 2015. But yeah, that is a magical place. And so for me, I can definitely see this pattern here of going off the grid and going into the city. Before I was in Dallas, I was in Estacada, Oregon, just outside of Portland amongst the trees. Wasn't off the grid, but I was rural. Then I went to Dallas. Then I went to Costilla County. But before I even went to Costilla County the first time, somebody that was a little bit perceptive was kind of speculating on kind of what I was going through when my, I don't know how this fell out. I'm going to have to plug this in again. Going back and forth from an urban environment to a rural environment. But even before I went to Costilla County the first time, a perceptive friend was like, you have the spirit of going from the mountain back into this urban environment. Because I remember I was looking for answers. Where am I supposed to end up? Where is the end of the road? And the truth of the matter is, there isn't necessarily an end of the road for Alex Ansary. There's the moment that we're in when we're in the moment. And we may really need to be somewhere on the planet during a certain period in time. And we may not know why. We may just feel the winds of change and the currents pulling us this way to that way, so on and so forth. So something pulled me to that area of Costilla County. I know that for sure. And something was answering my prayers. I would say the Creator spelled with all caps. Screaming out to the Creator, Creator, in caps. A place of safety, a place of refuge. You know what I mean? A place to get my grounding and then go back out into the world. How alien is that really for a person who seeks clarity to go out in nature? But you see, in today's day and age, we live in these cities where our DNA, which is a transmitter receiver, the crystals of the DNA are being affected by the unnatural electromagnetic fields. It's more natural today than ever to escape an urban environment for that reason alone. And the smart meters and the other technologies, the cell phone towers, things of that nature. You look at people living in major cities in the 1920s and 1930s, New York City, That may have been a major city, but it didn't have all that buzzing going on. So this is obviously something that I've given a lot of thought to. And as I said, I'm fascinated by the idea of some people choosing to remain in some areas because the energy is higher or because there's more things buzzing. And that's not necessarily a negative when we talk about human activity. You know, one of the things that I've noticed living off the grid is things do get a little bit more tribal the more rural you go, the more trees there are. It seems a little backwards. You can even say a little bit backwater. However, oddly enough, that's just how things are. So Alex Ansary is looking for a little change in his life. I even looked back to Costilla County, Colorado. And hopefully the buzzing from the microphone isn't too distracting because I have it plugged in, but that's something that I'll keep in mind, along with other elements of basically this what I might call a mobile production unit that would have costed thousands upon thousands of dollars to do something like this a few years ago, and now they've made the software and things of that nature, and the computers and the webcams much more affordable than ever before. So, you know, there's a lot that I have to talk about. There's a lot that's on my mind, so to speak. There's a lot of things that are in the news. And sometimes I need some additional inspiration or oxygen, if you will, right? So I'm planning on doing some more videos. Things are going to be a little bit relaxed between here and the next week as I rest, as I write. You know, when I head to my destination, I'm actually going to be doing a fair amount of reading and writing nonstop, you know, as I get closer and closer to sea level. You know, I haven't been around sea level for about 2.5, 3 years, but that was the level in which I was born, at sea level in Portland, Oregon. So there's something natural to me for the philosopher to change his or her environment, his or her altitude, you know, his or her reality, to go from extreme rural to extreme urban, back and forth, and recording their thoughts and getting to know people along the way. You know, and right now I'm at this point where I've been very anti-grid city-ish in general, very pro grid. You can even say almost out of balance, to a point where I went to the other side of the teeter-totter and I went, ew. You know what I mean? And then I began to realize, well, there is a reason why some people do choose to live in urban environments, around other people, around other ideas, or around certain places on the planet. And I understand this, being from the West Coast, being from Portland. Some people need to be around where that openness and that change is, and that energy is, and that creativity is. And just because there's a lot of evil in Los Angeles doesn't mean that it's all evil. Doesn't mean that all human actions and interactions and all forms of media are evil. Honestly, I think it would be great for the right people out there to connect me with the right people while I may or may not be in the Los Angeles, San Diego area, or perhaps even traveling up the coast of California. So hit me up, send me a private email. You know, you may not be able to get a hold of me in the YouTube comment section. Find a way to get a hold of me if you do want to get a hold of me. For those of you in the California area, for those of you that have seen Fourth Horse Rising, you can find that at my YouTube channel. I would love to make a documentary film while in LA with someone with the know-how, the production capabilities, you know, the studio, the passion. This would be a great time to network. And if I don't network, no expectations, right? You know, no ridiculous desires. You know, there doesn't have to be necessarily a sit down between Alex Ansary and Scorsese or Stallone, or I guess maybe all these guys are rapists now. I guess I'm supposed to come back later. I will, and kind of give you my take on why you're seeing this massive bombardment of news about the same topic, in some cases, like in the same week. That's not normal. There's a push behind that. But I'll get into that in the next video. But yeah, what have I learned 5 years later as I wrap up my thoughts? If you want to experience something great, you got to overcome the fear of death, sometimes put faith in God, and be willing, right, to go out into the wilderness or travel into America's largest cities on earth. Sometimes, if you want to have the experience, you have to create the action. You actually have to stand up and do something, travel, change up your environment, change up the stagnant energy. And that's what's on the menu for Alex Ansary. For now, subscribe if you're new, support if you can. Going to be a lot of videos coming your way, and I'll be back.